You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and are Hamas playing the world's most dangerous game of 4D chess with Israel? So this is a fairly controversial look at everything. I think 4D chess has emerged in the modern era when somebody seems to have done something that latently becomes very successful. I'd look at Paramount at the moment. They got abuse for paying out $16 million to Donald Trump, and as what appeared to be a bribe to allow their business mergers to go through, and then got South Park on air trashing him, and also Colbert for another God knows how long on air trashing him. So, like the idea that you were thinking far ahead, but I think with 4D chess, spoils go to the victor. And it may seem an insane thing given the unbelievable destruction of Gaza and the plans to remove the populations from the West Bank and Gaza Strip and, you know, the starvation. But look at what's happened overall, and look at what happened on October the 7th when the massacre happened, and ask why. So, like, the conflict in general has gone on for 70 years in some stage or another, but for the last 30 years, it's broadly followed the same pattern, which is Israel won't get focused on by Western news media, but will continually aggravate and murder Palestinians at a drip rate, slow motion genocide, and move settlements in and so on. Eventually, it will blow up when the people of West Bank or Gaza have had too much. It will blow up, and it will usually be around something like firing a few rockets into Israel that usually don't actually hit anything. Or it will be like kidnapping Israeli soldiers, which is what Hezbollah did a few years ago as well. And these events, even though they're usually very, very small, result in enormous blowback from Israel, like wars, like Operation Cast Lead and so on. It's happened all of the time. And then it goes back to slow motion genocide. There'll be 2 or 3 years where not much happens and the Western media doesn't really report on the fact that it's still ongoing. And so on. But this was very, very different. This was like an unprecedented full-scale assault on Israel, on Israeli territory, which has been pretty much left out of the mix this century as far as attacks go. Like virtually none of the rocket attacks from Hamas or any other related organization have caused very much damage inside Israel. Not much has happened inside Israel, but this was a huge attack in style and scope. So why? Like, no one in the media has asked, why would they commit such an enormous attack? And one that would engender enormous international condemnation and seem to play massively into Israel's hands. Well, what if that was the plan? Look at what's happening now and look what's happened recently. The world has never been this galvanized for the Palestinian cause. So even while on the ground it's the worst time ever, the global feeling towards what Israel was doing in the West Bank and Gaza Strip has never been worse for Israel. It's become regarded as the genocide of our era, and countries that are normally rock solid, such as Australia, the UK, Canada, and even the European nations, have never responded so strongly to anti-Israeli sentiments like recognizing a Palestinian state. So what if that was like, I can't get my head around why they would have done such a big attack. Again, I mentioned that, you know, it would turn the whole world against the Palestinian cause. A year or so later, it's done the opposite. And things like recognizing a Palestinian state are so powerfully important. You can tell by the people that are opposing it how they say it's lip service, and yet those same news organisations are going apoplectic against countries that do so. Obviously, it does mean something. It makes it a lot harder to eradicate the Palestinian people when nations like France and the UK and Australia and Canada are recognising a Palestinian state. It makes whatever happens there illegal in some form. It has shattered the public profile of Israel like nothing else has. Apart from America, virtually the whole world has recognized a Palestinian state and the two-state solution, which was always a complete lie. Like the idea of a two-state solution was, the paradigm was, yes, Israel does agree to a two-state solution, and gradually we're going to steal more and more of your pizza until you've got no pizza. But now it's very, very different. They've come out and said the quiet part loud, which is we never intended to follow a two-state solution. We always intended to eradicate the Palestinians, either by death or by removal from the West Bank and Gaza Strip. They said the quiet part out loud that everyone knew, but they had gotten away with saying, well, if only the Palestinians behave, we'll do X. But now it's come out that how the Palestinians behave has never, ever been an issue. Yeah, I did a review of Louis Theroux's Settlers piece, brilliant show, you should watch it. One of many that have been covering the same subject that came out earlier in the year. How the Palestinians behave has never been part of it. Eradicating them has always been part of it. And that's been shattered by this whole scenario. We've had decades of these settlements building up. So did Hamas gamble here? Did they look at the long-term picture and say, well, we're just being bred out, forced out, settled, colonized, and killed or imprisoned, and that's just going to carry on until we are nothing? And they just went all in, like in a game of poker. They just went all in on this hand. This is the biggest hand they could have played. And was it relying on Netanyahu overreacting? Knowing what a ideological monster he was, and the fact that he faces huge corruption charges in Israel, which is stopping him backing out of this current wave of fast motion genocide, that he would go all in. And his government is always so tenuous. It's always backed by these very hard right forces that are even more ideologically right-wing than he is, who openly say, as one of them did yesterday, the one that today had his Australian visa removed as he wanted to come here and talk to Australians, and was even opposed by a prominent Jewish group in Australia for appearing, saying that Gazans' children are our enemy. Every single person in Gaza is our enemy. So we're now seeing a scenario where, and like the Netanyahu government is very, very tenuously a coalition. And he can't back down in any direction, not that he probably ideologically wants to, but the world is, and the public are supporting Palestine like never before. So was this the long-term goal? Because I can't see a realistic one other than that. Maybe they were just looking at the fact that there would eventually be no Palestine left and let Netanyahu loose and let these really, really racist ideologues loose to do their worst and to rub the world's noses in it, which is, I think, what's happened. I mean, the mealy-mouthed response to the two-state solution from the West for the last 30 years has always been, oh, it's a bit difficult, but we do support it, and we do think settlements are illegal and so on. But now it's really got to the point where Israel might be sanctioned, where Israelis are being accused by the International Criminal Court of being war criminals, Netanyahu himself, where it's going to become a lot harder to operate on the global stage for them, where he's done more damage to the Israeli cause than anyone in history. So this is a really dangerous tactic where all of the spoils will go to the victor. But maybe it was the most dangerous accelerationists. So you talk about accelerationists in America, the neo-Nazis, that try and do things that will speed up what's happening. And maybe that Hamas looked at the table, the chessboard, and wanted to speed things up so that they would reach this point. Because I think if it is a game of 3D, like the accelerationists will do terrible things to try and move society in their direction quicker, like a terrorist attack. But at this moment, we're at the stage of the game of chess where there's only a couple of pieces left on the board. And like I said, to the spoils will go to the victor. But maybe that was the plan all along, because I can't logically think of a different one.